Hey everybody, this is Tom from VermiBag. I'm going to go ahead and retire another VermiBag. This is an old VermiBag Mini. I actually did a video on it a couple years ago when I first got this, because it was actually one of the first VermiBags I got that was kind of a, not a reject, or it was slightly a reject, but it was almost a perfect bag. But this one, I'll bring you in a little bit closer and show you. It has a lot of the old design features and stuff. So. But I need the stand, and I want to try out a different material, possibly for the Minimist. I've been having pretty good luck so far with the Little Mammoth using a Cordura body and then using a non-breathable top. That combination seems to trap quite a bit of moisture in. And so I received a new material. It's fairly light. It's a 400 or a 500D Cordura. I mean, it's very strong material and stuff. And it doesn't seem like it breathes too much, but it's pretty thin in comparison to some of the other materials, so I'm thinking it probably is going to breathe a fair amount. But I made up a quick bag in the Minimist design, and I'm going to go ahead and put it in here and just give it a shot and just see how it functions and see if it dries out, see if that solid lid will compensate for the breathable sides. Because the Minimist right now has the non-breathable sides, but it has a breathable lid. So I'm going to swap that around the other direction and just see how it goes. Like I said on a few other videos, I would much rather have the VermiBag stay on the dry side versus the wet side. Because it's very simple to correct a system that's too dry and bring it back up to the proper moisture, versus a system that's too wet and bringing it down to the proper moisture, getting rid of that moisture. It's kind of difficult sometimes. So I'll go ahead and bring in, I'll show you this bag real fast, the old features that it had, and then I'll set that new Minimist in here and we'll load it up with some worms and I'll see how it goes. So you can see this old bag. I mean, it's pretty old because it has the old original VermiBag logo when I just put it up on the strap section. It does have the Vermi window on it, and this was actually a little bit of a reject per se because I had a much smaller zipper on the bottom. And it has a two-piece harvest panel, one of the old designs, which I had a few issues. I didn't put too many bags out like that, thank goodness, but I had an issue between here and here because there's a seam here, and it would leachate would kind of come out between the seam and get on the zipper. Now the bags, this material is the same as this. It's just a continuation of it, and so there's no issues anymore with that. And the top of this bag is actually, again, the original that had a vent all the way from side to side. I later decreased the size of the ventilation panel and put a small strip of solid material all the way around. So again, this is one of the original VermiBags that came out. So I mean, it's functioning just fine, but I need the stand, and I'm continuously, trying different things with some of these bags to come up with the perfect combination that, is the best for a lot of different climates. And you see this stand too. This is the stand that has the variety of different methods to attach the VermiBag. So each corner is actually different. So in this corner I notched it out and I put a round dowel. And it's not attached, just sitting in here. And I notched the corners. This one I did the same thing with a square stock. Again, it's just sitting in here. This corner I put a rod, just notched it in. This corner I just used a wood dowel. So I'm going to continue to just use those. There's no need to make another new stand up. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this new bag and stick it in here and set it up and see how it goes. I'm going to go ahead and show you how I set this bag up in here. It's kind of interesting with the different corners, with the different materials and stuff, but any one of these actually works just fine. And with the notch method, you don't even have to secure these things in here, because once you get a little weight on the system, it'll keep these items, down inside the notches. So this is the bag I'm going to use. It's a 500 denier Cordura material, and I put a non-breathable lid on it. But it's real light. It feels like a really light bag. This thing doesn't weigh very much. It doesn't seem all that substantial. But this material is waterproof, and it doesn't breathe a tremendous amount. It definitely breathes, but we're going to find out exactly how much. So put this in here, Show you how simple it is. On each one of these corners, just pick up your whatever it is. In this case, the square stock. Put it there. A little dowel, a steel dowel or aluminum dowel. Put it through there. Wood dowels are dirt cheap. You can use those. And the last one's a bigger wood dowel. I put it in there like that. And just like that, the bag's in there. Good, open it up. I'll pull back and kind of give you a view of the bag. So this is the bag, what it looks like in this tan material I have. Black lid, and the lid is a non-breathable. Has a standard harvest panel. You see inside, I mean, pretty much a standard that you'd see on any VermiBag. And so I'm going to go ahead and place a small piece of paper, or newspaper, or napkin down on the bottom. And then we're going to go ahead and throw some worms in this thing, and we'll get this one running along with the new little mammoths and see how it does. Again, this material is fairly thin. It's 500 denier, but stuff I use on the VermiBag minis and the Max is 1,000 denier. It's a much heavier material than this, but again, it's waterproof, but it is breathable. So we get some worms and set this thing up. Okay, so as always, I'm going to lay 2 small sheets of newspaper, single sheets, down here in the bottom of this thing. I'll do one each direction. And again, that just keeps the castings off the harvest panel for the initial harvest. Once you harvest the first time, you'll pull the remnants of that out, throw it in the top of the bag, and then from then on, the castings will be all the way down at the bottom. Now I got a tub that I separated a bunch of worms out of that old Mini that I just retired. So there's quite a few worms in here. I'd say probably 1.5 pounds maybe. It's hard to say. Somewhere around there. There's quite a few. I mean, in the lower sections here, there's a lot of worms. So I'm just going to dump all this material in here, so I'm not going to actually have to add any additional new bedding for right now. I'll set some a little carefully initially here, so I don't get any behind this paper. If I can get it for it pushes that paper along the side. There you go. I think what I'm going to do is grab just a tiny little bit of fresh bedding and just put a little layer on the top. Okay, so I have just, I don't know, about 8 or 9 cups, I suppose, of fresh bedding here. I'm really just going to put that as a little layer on there, and it's actually really good food for them. They really like this stuff, so I encourage them to kind of come up to the surface here and go through this. And all these big chunks of cardboard that I have in my bedding, normally as I put them in, and as I check my worms on a weekly basis, I normally rip these up just a little bit more every time. They're really soft, so they rip up real easily. And that way, by the time they end up getting buried and go through the system, they should be a lot smaller, and hopefully they'll be processed by the worms. And if they're not, you just take them, and when you sift through your castings, you pull it out, you grab all of this and just throw it back into the system, and make another run through the system. So it'll be interesting to watch this bag and compare it to the Minimist that has the non-breathable sides and the breathable top. And I'll say it again, I've said it 100 times already, but I really think I want to keep these systems more on the drier side than on the wetter side. And I think by varying the lid You know, that's where you're going to get most of your moisture loss, is through the lid. So by using the non-breathable lid and having breathable sides, you're going to get all the benefits of the breathability, all that extra oxygen for the worms and stuff. And the only thing you're probably going to have to do is get a garden sprayer, and every time you feed, if you're not feeding really wet, moist material, a lot of it every week, the system's probably going to dry out slightly around the sides. So you just use that garden sprayer every week, and you spray right around the perimeter of the bag and let that water keep that outside edge moist. The intersection won't be too bad because just the mass of the material there tends to hold that moisture really well. But it's going to be these areas that are touching this outer fabric that are going to tend to dry out just a little bit. So again, I would highly encourage anybody that has a VermiBag to pick up one of those garden sprayers. It'll save your hand for you aren't having to try and spray. And you tend to not put enough water on using a hand sprayer because your hand gets tired. And it seems like you're putting a lot of material or a lot of water, but you're actually not. One of those garden pump sprayers, you know, put out 10 times the amount of water that a hand sprayer will. So we'll close this up and we'll take a look at it next week and see how it's doing. This is Tom from VermiBag. Till next week, ciao.